Alright, so now it looks like we're ready to put the servo in your robot. So let me show you how to mount the servo into your robot. We have here the servo and the servo mount. This one already has a servo gear installed, like we installed it in the last video, but if you're building a lifter or a flipper robot, then you'll just have the servo horn without this gear for now. This servo clamp looks a little bit different depending on which robot you're building. If you're building any of the hammers, it's going to look something like this. It'll have a slightly different shape here. If you're building one of the lifters or flippers, then it's just going to be a plate without this top section. But the installation process is really the same either way. Pay attention to which side the wires come out. We're going to want to face that towards the back of the robot. This portion right here of the robot, right next to where the weapon is going to sit, this is where your servo is going to mount. You're going to take the servo with the wires pointing towards the back of the robot, so it's going to be pointing towards the side where your switch is. You're going to place it right into that pocket. Just give it a little press down. Make sure that it's sitting flat, and you'll see that if you try to move it around, it's already pretty well constrained in the robot. And you'll see it has the gear sitting right in the middle here. So now all we have to do is use our servo clamp, place it right above there, and that servo clamp is going to hold the servo down. For the hammers, the servo clamp also doubles as a mounting point for your weapon axle once you install the hammer. For the lifters and the flipper bots, you'll notice that the servo clamp has this feature on one side. You want to make sure that that's pointing towards the servo horn side of the servo. This will make sure that the entire servo is supported by that servo clamp. Otherwise, you're going to install it the same way as the servo clamp for the hammers with those 4 screws. You'll notice that I still have the wires of the servo coming out towards the back of the robot. So we're going to go ahead and install these 4 screws. You're going to use the same screws you've been using for the rest of your chassis, and you're going to install them using your Phillips head screwdriver. I like to go ahead and install the screws diagonally first, just to make sure that the mount's being held flat in place. And just like the other screws in your chassis, you don't need to over-tighten these. Once you feel that they're sitting snug, that's tight enough. We'll go ahead and put in the last screw. Now our servo is mounted in there nice and secure. Now, since we put the wire back, it fit right through this groove here. If you were to put the wire coming out the front, you would actually pinch it here. So if you see that you can't put this on easily, don't force it. You might be pinching some wires. Make sure that these wires are coming out through this wire groove right there. And then you can go ahead and use your zip ties to tie all these wires down. Make sure that they don't get pinched when you put your top plate on. Alright, so now our servo is mounted with the servo clamp, and we're ready to start adding a weapon to the robot.